Welcome back to IGN's coverage of Gamescom 2016. I'm Brian, and this is Patrick from Deus Ex Mankind Divided. Your game is out in a week.
I know, in a week.
How do you feel? That's got to be terrifying and nerve-wracking.
It's really weird, actually, when you finish the game like that. You need the worst moment is when they tell you that it's done. It's like it's been submitted, and as a developer, you can't touch it anymore. I just don't want to play it anymore because I'm like, if I find anything at this point, that's it, you know.
Is that what happens? Did they actually like lock you out?
Yeah, you get locked out, you know, until the very end. You know, you're trying to get these little things in there, and we should tweak this, we should tweak that, we should change this little loot thing here, and they're like, get out of here, take your vacation.
Your key card doesn't even work.
Yeah,
oh, that's a
they
bummer.
just don't want you there.
Well, I feel it's. I mean, you're making art, obviously, right?
I know,
go out and, just say
and you
things
have
are
to.
art.
You kind of have to let go, and it's really hard, actually. It's really hard because you're used to think about it all the time, you know, in the shower, in the bus, you know, before going to sleep at night, and then all of a sudden you're thinking about stuff, and it's like, oh nope, I have no more outlet for that, you know. All these new ideas or these new thoughts that I have, it's like it's.
But there's that kind of liberating moment of being like, well, I've been thinking about this for so long, and now it's time to give it to the world for them to experience for the first time, and then you get to react to the way they're interacting with these stories.
Yeah, that's really the best part, and that starts a little bit during the playtest phase. That's the first time that we actually get to see the interaction, people actually playing it, and we get their reactions. We actually film like their reactions. It's looped on the floor, and you walk around the development floor, and people are watching the person playing it, and they're like, oh, they smile there. Oh, he was so happy when
Do they know you're there, or is there one?
They don't know. It's like one of those two-way mirrors.
Right.
Yeah. We're all watching in the back. We're like, come on, the thing is right in front of you. What are you doing?
So you're basically cops.
Pretty much,
That's great. So we're checking out the game right now. It's gorgeous. Like I'm just consistently impressed at the amount of detail that's packed into this world. You guys have, you know, you've created this sort of futuristic dystopia. What were some of the influences towards this? Because I mean, I'm picking up like little bits of Blade Runner and a few other things, but it's got so much of its own style.
I know. I think it was a lot of the continuation of some of the stuff that was laid out in Human Revolution, and then taking that. And that, for example, like this particular facility, it was thought out as a location for migrant workers, and it got totally overpopulated because of the AUG incident. They decided to send the augmented people there and make them live there, and then obviously like they sent a lot more people than the facility could accept, and then just people are trying to just make a living and trying to get around it. So in terms of the design, that's how it was thought out. You know, it's these blocks, these metallic blocks, that are these cubes that are kind of laid out, and there's like thousands and thousands of them, and it had a particular purpose, but then it's been reappropriated by the people to actually try to make a living here and try to make some kind of a housing arrangement.
Yeah, it's this sort of good mix between this sort of tattered rag approach to the fall of humanity and this sort of kind of cybernetic robotic approach that's happening at the same time. These two things are meeting at once.
Yeah, and it hits you when you get there, because you've been hearing about this place a little bit prior to getting there, and you know about the AUG movement and people. Even you've seen people in Prague, and they're in some crappy situations as well. They're in difficult living conditions, and they're saying, well, at least we're not in Gollum City. And then
right, the grass is always greener,
right? And you're like, what does that mean? What is Gollum City? Then when you actually get here, you actually see what it's about and the living condition of people, and we've had a lot of that. That's what's been interesting as well. We're talking before about playtests and seeing people's reactions to it, and we always ask them questions afterwards about what they felt with the experience, and we get strong reactions from this point. This is where people get it. They're like, oh, okay, like this is the real thing, and it touches people emotionally, and it makes them. Even little stupid things like you know, in a video game, you're gonna go around, you're gonna loot everything, you're gonna take everything, and in a location like this, you're like, do I really want to do that? You know,
feel bad
look at these people living here. You know, this is all they have, and I'm just kind of taking it. I'm gonna
they've got nothing
and
at all. It's like
that's
like the opposite of Robin Hood. You're like robbing from the poor to give to yourself.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
not right. But this game is about player choice, and that's really a big part of it, is sort of figuring out the way you want to interact with different scenarios. How do you playtest like something like that, are you watching people just sort of let the story unfold in their own ways, or do you kind of, are there ways throughout the game where you can kind of nudge people to maybe take a certain route or interact with a scenario a certain way?
Well, there are moments in the scenario where we kind of branch back to a particular point, that we know that, because it is a story-driven game, so we know that people are going to go through certain beats, but we try to leave it as open as possible throughout that. Narratively, it's pretty complicated. Like there's a lot of different possibilities in terms of have you spoken to this character prior to doing this? Is this character still alive? Do you have this item? It unlocks this other narrative possibility, and there's a lot of stuff to keep track of. But the team got really used to that in Human Revolution, so they wanted to push that even to another further level in Mankind Divided. So they have this great big Bible of all the choices, and the tester, the QA department kind of goes nuts when we hand it over to them, because they have to test all of the different possibilities and know that, okay, I do this, I do that, and then I save the game, I reload.
How do you map something like that out? Is it like just this like whiteboard full of cards with strings like Kaiser Sente or like this FBI guy trying to take down like?
Yeah, it kind of starts out that way, and then it gets put into I think there's a gigantic like Excel thing or something like that. That's the format that they have. But
so is that the kind of scenario that will inspire players to play through this game multiple times and experience different things, or try different ways, like maybe play through sort of stealthier, maybe play through more combat-like?
I think that's definitely one of the things that's really fun about it, that you can do that. But I think also, even if you're only going to play it once, it's gratifying to feel like you could have done it a different way, and you feel the weight of your choices. You feel like it's not a false choice. You feel like you have a real freedom to do things a certain way, because you see the possibilities, and sometimes you see them afterwards, but you can kind of go with your play style, with your instincts, and it kind of makes you think a little bit the next times you do something. So that's the gratifying part about it. You feel very free about things.
I think it's interesting that you call that gratifying, because I call that sort of overwhelming and terrifying, to come out of a scenario and be like, oh man, I could have done it this way, this way, this way. There's so much regret involved there. But I guess in a video game it's a little easier, right?
It is, but the experience is that much purer. You know? Like, it makes you actually think about it. Whereas some other times, sometimes you're just gonna, well, whatever, I'm gonna kill this guy, or I'm gonna talk to, I'm gonna pick this up, and I'm not really gonna think about it. Here, because you know that the game could unfold in different ways, it makes you stop and think that, oh wait, I might have to live with with future consequences of this, or there could be unforeseen consequences. Obviously it's not a life simulator or anything like that. We're not, there's not an infinite possibility of things that could happen. But as a player, you don't necessarily know where we draw the line, so it makes it interesting for you to think like, is this possible or is this possible? And it makes you, I think it makes you learn some stuff about yourself. How you go about dealing with something, and that's
very heavy. You're making now I'm very worried about this.
I like that. I like that in any game. Any game is like that. I'm a Sonic fan, and I just playing that, I realized, oh, okay, I like to stay. I'm afraid of spiky pits, and I like to go for stuff. And I learned something about my own play style, what I'm attracted to, and I think good games manage to do that.
Sure, and you kind of figure out what kind of person you are, whether you're a monster or not. I think that comes out a lot in a lot of video games, and I think especially something like this, given the option of, all right, I'm going to sneak past this guy, or I'm going to completely wreck him like we're seeing right here. I guess that is a sort of character study of who you are yourself.
Yeah, I think a lot of art does that, actually.
Yeah.
When you're reading books and doing things, you just get to know a little bit more about yourself, and that's kind of interesting. But it's definitely empowering, and I think that's definitely one of the things that we've seen in people that are new to the Deus Ex franchise. They love the idea that it's not just a corridor. I can actually choose to ignore the objective. Like everything that you've seen so far in this video, you could pretty much choose to ignore it. There are a few beats where you have to do things, but you don't have to deal with these guys. You don't have to rescue the other guy. You didn't even have to speak to that lady originally. You can kind of do objectives. You can find stuff on your own. You can find stuff preemptively, and the game is going to support that, and it's going to allow you to do that. And there are many, many instances of that throughout the whole game.
I really, side note, I want you to start making just little toys of all the enemies. Because some of the designs are so cool. I'm really into these little robots.
Yeah.
Now, if this is someone's first Deus Ex game, first of all, shame on you. You should get back there and play some. But is this a kind of game that you feel like requires some homework, or can you go in and just start the story right here?
Yeah, you can pretty much start right here. You're going to understand the state of the world. There is a recap. There's like a 12-minute video that you can play it. It plays at the beginning of the game, or you can play it at any time if you want to know specifically the details of Human Revolution. And obviously that was a pretty good game, so I would encourage you to play
Yes,
that. But
absolutely.
but you're still going to understand what's going on in this world and who you are and what you're doing in it. So you should be fine coming right in.
That's good to know, because I think a lot of people are probably looking for a game to play like this right now. But it's always nice to kind of go into something fresh, even if you haven't done the homework, and be like, I can experience this for the first time.
Yeah.
So
I think it's the world, it's the narrative, it's this near future kind of world that really draws a lot of people to it, and then they discover like some of the possibilities and some of the freedom that the game offers, and then that's where they start getting hooked even more. So originally, like you see like in the early levels, people kind of play it more traditionally, like whatever they're used to playing. If they're more of a shooter type personality, then they go about it that way. And then when they start doing those first few elements, when they start breaking the mold, that's when they start, oh, wait, oh, I can ignore that? Oh, I
Yeah.
can do it this way? Or I can just sneak by? Or I can just talk to this guy and he's going to open the door? Oh, my God. And then that's when the wires start connecting and people start seeing possibilities of what they can do with all the different tools.
We also just saw, I mean, obviously you have the choice of stealth and combat and stuff like that, but we did even see choice right down to the way you augment your gun.
Yeah.
Is that something you can kind of sit back and watch people just come up with different combinations and different ways to play through just using that specific weapon?
Yeah, and it's really interesting the way that people do that sometimes. They upgrade them in different ways, and they use the weapons that they have for maybe long range or mid range, and they come up with interesting variations like that with the equipment that they have. So it's quite interesting. Yeah.
So we are just a week away from this game coming out.
I know.
You're done. You're done. You did all the work.
I
You
know,
took your
that's
hands
it.
off of it.
Yeah.
What are you most excited about players finding in this game?
To me, it's the overall experience of the what we built. It's not. Yes, there's a lot of freedom. It's all those different pillars. It's the narrative, but it's the overall experience of going into that world and feeling like that world kind of exists without you,
Yep.
even if you weren't there, and you overhear different things. And the game gives back as much as you give in. So if you start reading stuff, you start paying attention, you start noticing details, you start talking to characters, you're gonna start seeing that things connect, and the emails that you've read and the names of those the bank manager is saying your apartment's gonna get and then you go in the bank and you actually see that manager actually exists and
There
he's
he
a
is.
character, and you can talk to him, and maybe you can talk to him in a different way if you understood his personality or whatnot. And it's those moments, it's feeling that overall world and of possibilities that is really the Deus Ex experience for me.
All right. Well, Patrick, you built this world. Congrats on finishing it.
Thank you.
All of you can experience it in just a week. August 23rd. It's on PS4, Xbox One, and PC.
Correct.
Nailed it. This is Brian and Patrick right here at IGN Live for Gamescom. Don't move. We got plenty more game demos coming up.